Hello everyone, patrons, Patreon, what's up? Welcome back to my Patreon. So, I keep feeling like every time I open these videos, I want to be like, sorry I haven't uploaded much recently. But we know, I think you guys know if you're supporting me on this platform, that it takes me a second to kind of get around to this. And because as of now, I've been doing these like chattier kind of videos, sometimes it takes me a second to like get my thoughts together and then to sit down and edit them. So today's video is a very random topic. And actually, first off, pause. I want to say I am glad that you guys really liked my response video I uploaded recently to your guys' comments. And that's probably something that I'll do again at some point if you guys want, which I think you do from those comments. Because I was worried it was going to seem like pointless. I said that in the video, like, let me know if this is pointless. And I don't feel like that was how you guys took that at all. So today's video, once again, very random. I feel like my thoughts are so random. Comes from famous sayings on shirts. I was on Instagram one day and I saw someone wearing a shirt that said something like, you know, kind people are my kind of people. And then a little bit after that, I saw some kind of quote that was like, you know, be kind to everyone because you never know what kind of battle that someone is fighting. And then I saw some other kind of thing, like it was like kindness was like the theme of the day. Like it might have even been when that thing was going around about like, you know, everybody was posting like, go say hi to a kid on the first day of school, like be kind, a little kindness can go far. And I was just kind of thinking and pondering on the concept of kindness and thinking back really over the last few years, especially on social media and everybody's like recent obsession. It's not super recent, but you know, years past with like bullying and being kind. And I've always found that very fascinating because even though, yes, the obsession has risen with the internet, I remember being a kid and people talking about bullying and people being mean. And I remember kind of having a couple of different thoughts around this. One of those thoughts that I had was around the fact that like, I remember thinking it's really interesting some of these people that will like spearhead this idea of like, be kind to people, kind people are my kind of people. And then they're like the kind of people that won't like smile and say hi to people or will do like just some what I deem really rude things. And I'm like, I don't understand. Is that like the trendy thing to do? Or like, are you just not realizing your rudeness right now? That's kind of one of my thoughts that goes off. Another one of my thoughts that kind of came from that, and I've talked about this before on my YouTube channel, is also the concept of like the concept of like, we're all sinners. We all mess up. We all make mistakes. And I think that it's really interesting when we get on our high horse about, you know, offenses that other people have caused us. I think there's this pastor that did this whole sermon series book thing on offense and how like Satan uses offense in the church to like tear people apart. But I think offense, I mean, there's something brilliant about that concept. I think people getting offended just tears people apart. And I think it puts us in this position of like getting on our own high horse and looking down at other people, obviously, and then missing our own flaws. Whether, you know, they're things that we did intentionally to people or unintentionally, I think that we can all be so unkind. Is unkind even a word? We can be unkind to people all the time and not mean to do it. And so I know something that I try to do, and I'll always fail at because I'm human, but I try to not get too offended because I know I'm over here in my little world, like trying to be a kind, great person. And I'm probably accidentally hurting people left, right, and center. And they're probably looking at me as like, oh, Nikki on her high horse about like trying to be, you know, a great person to everyone, but little do they know. You know, I think that's just kind of what life is. And that's actually part of my problem a little bit with like all of the anti-bullying stuff is I'm just like, isn't that like life, like people accidentally hurting each other. And that doesn't mean that we should not promote kindness and love, which there's a verse in the Bible, and I can't remember the reference, but it's, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not jealous, it's not self-seeking. It's all of these things. And I love the way that verse breaks down what love is, because I think love and kindness and all of that is actually pretty vague, and the definition can be very flexible to different people. Like what one person might think is kind, like, is it kind to put an animal out of its misery if it's suffering and slowly dying? Someone could say that that's kind. Another person could say, why would you kill that? You just killed something. Like, that's not kind. That animal could have lived. So not only are people's definition of kindness and love different based on, person to person, their personality, their culture, their upbringing, just how they see the world, their religious background. Kindness varies. But that's the thing too. I feel like I know I'm like being very manic right now. I'm going like 62 different directions, but I'm like just kind of word vomiting. But that's something else I've been thinking about too. So I am very much, I don't really operate this way, but in my heart, I'm a free speech absolutist. Like that, when you talk about politics, I always feel like that's the best way to lump me, is I don't really feel like I have a political party or affiliation. I am a free speech absolutist. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And one of those reasons ties into what we're talking about right now, because I think that different people and different perspectives can look at something and be like, that's hateful. And someone else might be like, I don't mean that as hate. Now, does that invalidate that person's emotions? Kind of, but not really, because people are allowed to feel however they're going to feel. And, there's reasons that people feel that way. But does that mean that this person, these people need to shut up and stop talking because that's hate speech? And when really, like, let's say the thing that they're talking about might be called hate speech by one group of people, but to this group of people, they see that as like, well, I'm not trying to be hateful. I'm trying to further a discussion so we can look at something here in a way that maybe they deem rational and see how we want to evolve and change as a society. Yeah, I don't even know where I'm going with all of that. I see a lot of talk online, like I said, about anti-bullying, being kind to people. And those are kind of like my first thoughts that come when I see all of that, is like, okay, well, what is kindness? Here's the thing too, right? We all base our views off of a myriad of things. Life experience for you in your life, I think, is one huge one. And then based off of things that you've read, researched, seen in media, whatever. So that's kind of the first thing, is my brain goes like, okay, well, what is kindness? And also, I've had so many things in my own personal life where literally guys, I'm not even kidding, I have done something with not just neutral, like, what's the word? Intentions. Like, oh, I'm just doing it. And like, oh my gosh, I hurt your feelings. I didn't mean to. But literally like kind intentions where I'm like, I can't wait to help this person. Like, I'm thinking of two very specific examples in my head where like the only person that really understands this is Dan, because those specific examples I'm thinking of, I actually verbally processed to Dan, like how I was going to help these two people and like how I was so excited for them and what I wanted to do. And the way that the events unfolded over time was those people, separate situations, separate times in my life, ended up seeing me as like someone that had tried to like sabotage them and bring them down. And that is a very weird feeling when you go into something. It's weird when you're neutral into something, right? And someone's like, you hurt my feelings, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. It is even weirder when you're like, yay, I can't wait to help this person, and then they're like upset at you. And that really opened my eyes even further to like, oh wow, we really have no control of how other people feel and how they experience things. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try to be kind and considerate and loving, because we always should. I mean, like the golden rule, right? Like don't treat other people the way you wouldn't want to be treated, even though the way everybody else wants to be treated, like varies from person to person. So you still try, but it made it very clear to me that your intentions don't really always matter. And I know when we were talking about, speech earlier, like hate speech, it's like, well, that person didn't mean to be hateful. Does that mean it's not hateful? It's like, and I could see you seeing it as like, well, it was hateful. But I think that that's a slippery slope because you're choosing to value one person's opinions over others. And you could say the same thing about me saying that with free speech. Like, oh, so you're choosing to value free speech over how other people are being made to feel. But I truly think that because emotions are so fickle and people misunderstand things and communication is wonky, I just think that the idea of like labeling someone hateful because they're thinking about ideas or presenting thoughts is just, it makes me sad. I don't like the idea of, speech and communication and ideas being shut down because people are labeling other people, as hateful or oppressive. I really think that the conversation and communication is essential. And now I feel like I'm going off on a whole separate thing, but it all feels intertwined to me because as I watch things play out in the world, whether it's like, a smaller thing of like, day-to-day kids being bullied, dealing with stuff like that, or on a bigger scale of like politics and global news or whatever, there's so much talk around kindness and the speech that people say. And I just think like, man, stuff can be misconstrued. When I lived in Singapore, I knew a girl and we were together, and then someone that was Singaporean said to me and this other girl, this other girl was a little heavier than I was, and she said to her, oh, how come you don't lose weight like her? Why aren't you skinny like her? And my friend was like, obviously, well, not obviously, this is where it depends on culture. She was mortified and her feelings were hurt. She's like, but to this girl, she didn't mean anything by it. So it's like, should she be punished? No. Should we tell her that that's offensive? Guess it depends if you feel like it. We didn't. I don't think we said anything. I don't remember. But, to be so offended by people's speech and actions and to get so hurt, and then as a society to try to squash that and control it, I think not only is dangerous, but doesn't make any sense, because whose standards are you abiding by as to what is considered kind, what is considered, thoughtful? It changes everywhere. And so, like I said, I think it's dangerous. I think it doesn't make sense. And I think that when we try to like shield kids or shield people from that, it's like, well, what are you going to do in life when you encounter people who either don't mean to hurt your feelings and your feelings are hurt? Like, does that invalidate your feelings? No, you're allowed to be hurt, but like, welcome to life. And like I said, I don't mean that in like everybody should just be allowed, just whatever. But I kind of simultaneously do, because just because someone says something, like, you don't have to react a certain way. You don't have to sit and stew and be sad. And I live in both worlds. I've mentioned this before, and I say this to my friends all the time. I feel like I live in a constant state of cognitive dissonance in so many areas in my life, but I'm totally comfortable with it now. Growing up, I used to think it was a bad thing, and I think it's often referred to as a bad thing, like you don't want to live in cognitive dissonance. But I actually don't even know how else to live, because I see so many points as good points, but I tend to sit more on one side. And so like when I talk about, free speech and stuff like that, I sit more, and that's why I can sound so confident, on the side of, no, I'm a free speech absolutist. But when people talk about hate speech and inciting things and, stirring up emotions, I'm like, I get what you're saying. I just, at the end of the day, don't agree. And like I said, because our life is obviously formed through, research and media and life experience, and my life experiences are, specific to me. And I have been bullied so much growing up throughout my life. When I was in school, I was bullied a lot. When I was out of school and I was in some of my first early jobs, I was hardcore bullied. Like, the stories that I have, I always consider doing story times, but I'm like, I don't want to throw people under the bus, but they're crazy. Like, when I tell real life friends, they're like, what? So that's and then now I'm on YouTube, obviously, where people have all kinds of opinions. So my view is definitely a little bit tainted, but I do think that kindness and you know, that thought in general, and us as a society, I think it would do us all good to like get off our high horses a little bit and stop being so offended by everyone else's faults and realizing that we have our own, and that we have almost certainly, without a shadow of a doubt, upset and offended and hurt other people unintentionally. And even if you're someone that like I was talking to a friend about this, I don't really spend much time like actively thinking like mean thoughts about people. Like this friend was really funny. She's like, I don't get it. You're like so angelic. I'm not. I'm full of my own sin and issues. But she was saying that because on the surface and the way that I am maybe day to day is I don't really, like I'm someone, I don't really get road rage. I'm like, oh, who knows what's going on with that person's life? Like I kind of tend to sit there. But, oh, what was the point? I was so busy like talking myself up. Oh, that was the point. I don't sit there, but I know from both things that other people have said to me and just common sense that I am still accidentally hurting people all the time. And so to once again get on my high horse and get super offended by other people and get hurt by them, it's like not productive. It's super hypocritical. And it's like, okay, it's like that verse in the Bible, like maybe focus on the log in your own eye before you get the speck out of someone else's, or try to point out the speck in someone else's. That's pretty much it for today. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I want to say thank you again for all of your support. It means so much to me. Every dollar I get so excited, and some of you are giving me like $3 and $5 a month, and I'm literally like, thank you. I was about to be like, who are you? But I know who you are. I see your names when you become a patron. And every dollar given, I appreciate it so much. So thank you again. I will hopefully see you back here soon. I hope you liked this video, and that is all. Okay, bye guys.